Rooted in resilience, resisting erasure, in collaboration with 8 Indigenous curators, the Penn Museum's new Native North America Gallery opens Saturday, November 22nd, and everyone's invited. Explore powerful stories of self-determination by Indigenous peoples, despite attempts to erase their identities, cultures, and languages. Join us for all-day festivities with performances, activities for all ages, and interactive galleries. Tickets at penn.museum. It's Wednesday, so we're talking politics. We caught up with Scott Sauer. He's SEPTA's general manager who's leading the transit agency at a pivotal point. Regional rail cars have been catching fire, so he's trying to meet a Friday federal deadline to have hundreds of trains inspected. The contract for SEPTA's largest workers union is expired, so he's at the negotiating table. And of course, figuring out how to fund our buses, trains, and trolleys in the coming years is top of mind for Sauer. With all of that, though, is SEPTA going to be okay? It's Wednesday, November 12th. I'm Trenae Nuri, and we're talking politics. Let's get straight into it. Scott, is SEPTA going to be okay?
Yes, SEPTA will be okay. SEPTA has had trials and tribulations for as long as we've been in existence. And while this is certainly very serious, I have faith that the right people are going to come up with a solution that will keep SEPTA moving for the foreseeable future. But I don't want to understate the tremendous challenge that lays in front of us today, not just with our rail car issues, but the funding has to be resolved in order for my optimism to come true.
Okay, we're going to talk about that funding issue in just a moment, but let's focus on the news coming out this week. 5 regional rail cars on the regional rail service caught fire this year, and as a result, federal transportation officials are demanding that hundreds of cars be inspected by Friday. So that means that you've had to take cars offline, which has meant delays, skipped stops, and then this week, some cancellations during the morning commute. What's the latest on the inspections and the maintenance of all of this? And will you meet the deadline on Friday?
So the good news is that we are almost 90% complete as of Monday. Okay. And so we fully expect to meet the deadline by close of business on Friday the 14th. So we have made really good progress. Where it got off to a pretty slow start, we had to first create an inspection program. We had to submit it to the Federal Railroad Administration for their approval. And then, of course, we had to get our inspectors up to speed on the new inspection process. So that all took some time,
they gave you guys a deadline extension,
they did.
Right? Mm-hmm.
They gave us the initial deadline was October 31st. We asked for an extension to November 14th, which we received. There's a second part that we were extended to December 5th. That is the installation of thermal detection circuitry. So we have about, as of Monday, we have about 40, a little more than 40 cars done there. Once we get through the inspections, we expect to be able to ramp that up significantly and meet that December 5th deadline.
What exactly is the thermal detection, and what are you guys checking for during these inspections?
So the inspection process is really, we're checking everything, but where we're paying very close attention to is our electrical systems. The 5 events that you referenced, the fire and smoke events that we saw since February, really originated with our electrical systems. So these are 50-plus-year-old cars. While we have maintained and overhauled them over the years, they're older equipment, and we have to spend a little more time with them now with their electrical components than maybe we had over the years.
What's the message, though, Scott, to Philly commuters, to regional commuters that are impacted by all this?
There's a couple messages I'd like to make sure that they hear is, number one, safety is the number one goal of the authority. We don't want to get anyone hurt. We want everybody who works and rides on SEPTA to make sure that they go home the same way that we got them. So we won't put equipment on the line that isn't safe to run. The second part of that is it's going to be challenging for us for the next couple months as we get through all of our inspections, all the installations of the wire. We trying to get the service back to what people used to know in August and September, getting it back to that level of predictability and reliability. So while I can sit and say, as soon as the inspections are done, everything's going to be great. I can't do that. I can't say that, and I can't guarantee that. But what I can guarantee is that things will get better through the rest of the year as more and more cars come back to service. What I want to stress, though, is we'll never be the same old SEPTA again. We have to treat these cars like 50-year-old cars, and we have to treat them in a way that we react and in some cases overreact to maintenance issues. And that's the way we're going to treat it. So our customer safety is paramount. Bear with us for the next, several weeks to the end of the year, and things will start to get better. And we will talk about this as we go so customers know what to expect.
Okay, so it sounds like you're juggling a lot. There's some other challenges too with contracts with bus, subway, and trolley operators that expired last week. Is that expected to be resolved soon? And could there be a strike?
Well, I mean, we're still talking. I wouldn't say we're anywhere near a strike at this point. I appreciate that President Will Vera of the Transport Workers Union promised that his members will continue to work beyond the contract extension. That's a good thing. That's, to me, indicative of the fact that we are talking, and we're going to try to get to a resolution without an interruption. This is TW 234 is our largest union. They represent probably about 5,000 of our 7,000 or 8,000 represented employees. And they are the first contract of many that we will have to get through over the next year. But it's a very important group, the biggest group. And we're going to continue to work throughout the week for as long as it takes to get a deal done. But I'm encouraged that President Vera wants to do something without an interruption. We certainly do as well. So we're going to work towards that goal.
Great. And we got to talk about the biggest of maybe the challenges and the long-term issues facing SEPTA, and that's the funding. Service was briefly cut and then restored at the end of summer. And then this all happened during this continued stalemate over the state budget. Governor Josh Shapiro had to step in and allow the use of capital funds to keep the trains and buses running. What are all the consequences, though, of tapping into that source, the capital budget for your operation, Scott?
Yeah, I tried to be very cautious with everyone when we proposed this transfer of capital funds that this is not a fix, this is not a resolution, this is a Band-Aid, and moving capital dollars to operating, while it certainly keeps the system running today, what it does is it prevents us from improving the system by buying new equipment, by upgrading our stations for accessibility, replacing or repairing equipment that could age out, and it defers these investments into the system. We report a backlog of state of good repair. So state of good repair doesn't mean that anything on the system is unsafe, because it wouldn't be in service if it was. But state of good repair means that something has reached the end of its useful life as dictated by procurement standards, and we need to replace it. And we can't. So we will sink more operating dollars into the maintenance of that asset instead of replacing it. So when you move the capital dollars to operating, it keeps us running, but it defers all these upgrades and all these improvements that would avert a crisis like what we're seeing with the Silverliners, where we could have replaced these cars over the last couple decades. We had to defer that and now we're forced to replace them.
So how long do you have, and how long does this keep you running and staying afloat? Because basically what you're saying is that SEPTA is using money that was allotted for other stuff.
Right. Yeah. So what this does is it keeps us afloat, if you will, for at least 2 years. We're already now almost 6 months into year one, so we only got about 18 months left. And so by January of 2027, we are going to start talking about this again.
Having the same conversations?
Having the exact same conversations. We'll be talking about what'll happen if a budget doesn't come and we run out of funding. The same operating deficit that we were talking about this year is not gone. It hasn't left us. It's been covered up, if you will, by capital dollars. And then in 2 years, it will resurface again. That's the $213 million deficit that we were talking about all year. So in January 27, those conversations will heat up. Not that we won't be talking about it between then and now, but by then we have to talk about it because that fiscal 28 budget will be right around the corner. That begins July 1st of 2027. And that will again be that moment in time where we'll be making decisions. Do we cut service? Do we end, service in some routes? Do we reduce it? It is a lot that all the same things we did this year are on the horizon if we don't resolve it with a permanent funding solution.
So I feel like I can speak, like, this is what I've heard from Philly riders, from people that love public transportation. Like, they were pretty exhausted by all of this. There were reports that Republican lawmakers reached out to SEPTA over the summer, proposing to use the Public Transportation Trust Fund to fill that $213 million funding gap. Is that true? Did they reach out to you all?
So we worked with lawmakers on both sides of the aisle. The House Democrats led a vote on their bill. The Senate Republicans led a vote on their proposed amendment to that bill. And their proposal was to utilize the Public Transit Trust Fund dollars for the same purpose, essentially doing the same thing that we wound up doing. We were taking our capital dollars and transferring them to operating. What the Senate amendment was proposed is doing exactly that, and they added some dollars into the fund from other sources, other funding sources. iGaming, for example, they added some funding back for that. And then they also transferred some of the Public Transit Trust Fund dollars to highways. So there was a lot more in the bill than just SEPTA, although SEPTA was a big part of it. So yes, they did propose a resolution.
But then they claimed that you all weren't responsive.
Well, we were responsive. I did not. I was not necessarily in favor of moving capital dollars into the operating budget, which is essentially what we wound up doing. It's a stopgap, and I didn't want to have a situation where that was the solution. But here we are. It's a one-time transfer now, and that. So I wouldn't necessarily categorize us as unresponsive. I would simply say that we had a disagreement on the final solution. But both sides had proposed their own resolution.
Scott, what do you say when you might hear rural lawmakers in western parts of Pennsylvania say, they don't want to fund or use state taxpayer money to support our city's transit system? What's your response to that?
Well, I certainly can appreciate how they might feel that way. What you don't see, you tend not to think too much about. So they don't see SEPTA, they don't see value in SEPTA or Pittsburgh Regional Transit or any other transit provider because they don't see it, they don't use it. But what I would remind everyone is, first off, transit is in all 67 counties in Pennsylvania. It's not just SEPTA. It's not just the Southeast. So there is transit everywhere. And by the same token, whereas that particular constituent may not have a need to ever ride mass transit, by that same token, I may never have a need to cross that bridge that they need repaired through tax dollars come from the Commonwealth. Tax dollars, quite frankly, that 40% of get generated here in the Southeast, some of which I pay. So there are differences all over where the things that they contribute to the tax revenues go to fund that they may not see or use. Conversely, there are things in the fund that we contribute here in the Southeast that we will never see or use. But that's the definition of the Commonwealth. We are all here to take care of Pennsylvanians all across the state, and that's the idea of a universal revenue source that's controlled by the state government.
We've got more with Scott Sauer, the general manager of SEPTA, after the break. Filler Club is Philadelphia's best kept secret. It's the only place in the city where you can work out, and socialize all under one roof. Right in the heart of Philly, across from 30th Street Station, Filler Club is a private membership club built for modern city life. With multiple co-working spaces, more than 50 businesses on site, and a state-of-the-art fitness center featuring 2 full floors, personal training, an indoor pool, golf simulators, and even a cold plunge. You'll find everything you need to thrive. Visit fillerclub.com to learn more and apply to become a member. Discover why Filler Club is Philadelphia's best kept secret for work, wellness, and connection.
You know, when most of us want to learn a new language, it's not because we're dying to memorize grammar tables or ace a quiz. It's because we actually want to speak it out in the real world with real people. And that's what Babbel is great at, getting you there fast. Hey, it's Michael Ziviak, Chief Revenue Officer here at CityCast. My daughter's a senior in high school, and after graduation, we're taking a father-daughter trip to Spain. And right now, my Spanish is, let's just say, very high school level. Shout out to Senior Patty from Syosset High School. You tried. When we're in Spain, I'd love to do more than just ask where the bathroom is. I want to be able to chat with locals, order tapas, and actually connect, not just read the menu and point. So I'm starting with Babbel. It's all about small steps, big wins, and it's super easy to fit into my life. Honestly, with how busy things get here at CityCast, I love that Babbel's bite-sized, 10-minute lessons fit right into my day, between meetings or over my morning coffee. I'm excited to pick up some real-world Spanish before we go, so we can experience Spain like locals, not tourists. Doesn't that sound better? Right now, Babbel's got a special deal for our listeners. Get up to 55% off your subscription at babbel.com/citycast. That's BABBEL.com/citycast for up to 55% off. Rules and restrictions may apply. Gracias and adios.
Guess what? CityCast has some news. I'm Sean McPherson, the host of CityCast Twin Cities.
And I'm Jane C. Hu, and I'm the host of CityCast Seattle. Hey, if you have a friend in one of our cities, can you text them for us?
Yeah, something, simple like, hey, how's that rash doing? And do you listen to podcasts? Because I have one you're definitely going to like. After that, tell them that CityCast has helped you become more informed, more involved, and more connected to your amazing city.
We're going to help that person you know in Seattle who's been trying to make friends.
And we're also going to do that for that guy you only kind of knew in college who moved back to the Twin Cities after graduation.
Don't we all have that guy?
Yeah, and usually that guy is named Todd.
So did you text him yet?
Jane, let's just wait a minute. We don't want to rush anybody. We'll do a little small talk. How's everything going in Seattle?
Beautiful, beautiful. Fall leaves popping. How about Twin Cities?
Today, beautiful and sunshiny in St. Paul. Okay, Jane, I bet they are done texting by now, and I just want to remind them, hey, you, please tell that friend to subscribe to CityCast Twin Cities or Seattle, wherever you get your podcasts.
Or if you don't want to text them and you're really just on Instagram sending them DMs all the time with like funny videos, send them a DM of our latest videos. You can find us at CityCast Twin Cities or CityCast Seattle on Instagram. Thanks.
I also want to talk about some of the other things that kind of pop up in this transit conversation amongst lawmakers. They've pointed out to crime and fare evasion as being big problems for SEPTA to address. And you all have cracked down on fare evasion with like new technology at fare gates and issuing more citations for like those small crimes. So, Scott, is SEPTA safer these days?
Yeah, SEPTA is safer. The look, things sometimes these kinds of things happen on the system. We prefer that they never happen, but we have made tremendous strides to make the system safer. Crime. Crime is we had record reductions in crime last year, the highest ever since the transit police have been in existence. And now again this year, we're seeing even more reductions. So how did we get that? How do we get to that point is, well, first off, we brought in a new police chief, about 3 years ago. He in turn started hiring more police officers. We have more police officers on the rolls today than we probably had in over a decade. We have about 250 sworn police officers that are out there every day. We've used technology, as you mentioned. We have what's called a virtual patrol, where we actually have retired and light duty law enforcement who sit and monitor all 30,000 cameras in the SEPTA system. So we're able to react to things before they become a problem. We also have our new fare gates, as you mentioned, which we now have outfitted at, I think, 4 different stations, including City Hall, where they have reduced fare evasion exponentially, at those stations. And what that in turn is doing is giving our police even more data that they can use to put officers in place to manage these sorts of things. We've written thousands of citations for fare evasion, as well as other quality of ride offenses. So we are trying to take a multifaceted approach to a problem. Prevention, more officers in the system, on the trains, on the buses. We introduced a bus patrol, which we'd never had in the system before, a unit within our police department. So there's so much kind of happening in the system to make things safer for not just customers, but even our employees. You probably recall a couple of years ago, one of our bus operators was murdered on the Route 23, a horrible, horrible incident, something I never had to experience in my career before. And we responded right away. We worked with the union on a solution. We've created a safer bus operator compartment. We're piloting bullet-resistant glass and trying to make the job as safe as possible for our people. So we've done all these things and we're seeing results. And that's really the important part of that is customers want to see results. And they've told us they've seen results because quarter after quarter, when we get our customer satisfaction survey scores back, our scores for safety and security have risen every single quarter. So we've seen really good results from the things we're doing.
Now, you told me about the kind of increase of patrol and some of those safety measures that you put into place in the system. What about those quality of life issues, though, Scott? Like when you smell food and urine and people talking about maybe being uncomfortable at night or smoking on the L, mysteriously wet seats, and just loud noises from phones and conversations and things like that. Is there anything being done to kind of make the rides more pleasant?
So we are going after all the quality of ride things that you mentioned. Public urination, smoking, loud music on the cars and in the stations. But I will say, like that one of the challenges that we've had in recent years, I'll say over the last 5 years, and this is the social contract, if you will, of things. So prior to 2020, let's say, we have thousands of employees that are out on the system who are seeing these things in real time. And I'll take it back all the way to when I was driving on the system. And if somebody were smoking on my trolley or on my bus, I could politely ask that person to put that cigarette out. And 99 times out of 100, that person would just simply comply. That no longer happens. There are people out there who want to hurt our employees for simply asking them to comply with quality of ride rules. And that's just unacceptable. And so what that has done is it has somewhat removed our employees from this process because they fear for their personal safety. If I simply ask someone to put a cigarette out, that person may attack me. And we've seen it. So now we have to do all this work with just our police department. So they get out there and they are trying to enforce. What I would encourage our riders to do is when they come across these quality of ride problems, and you can do this confidentially, you can do it anonymously. On our Transit Watch app, which you can download, an app in Samsung, is you can report these things directly to the transit police quietly. You can take a photo if you're able to and show us, tell us where you are, what you're looking at. And then our virtual patrol, as I mentioned earlier, will activate the cameras in that location and look at what you're looking at. We also have a text line that they can text directly to our transit police dispatch. So we need every set of eyes on the system telling us what's happening, and then we'll respond to it. But I don't want anyone to put themselves in harm's way to do it, which is why we give you this feature to tell us quietly and anonymously if they feel that's necessary.
Scott, I hear you saying that, SEPTA is safe. So what more can you do to convince Harrisburg to fund the system and make sure that it gets reliable funding every year so we don't have to keep having this same conversation?
Well, we have to keep improving. We have things that we have to do at SEPTA. We have to get better. We have to, number one, get our rail cars in order, get our maintenance together, get a safe, reliable system running so the customers feel like they can count on SEPTA for their trip, right? No matter how much I can tell you about how crime has been reduced, it only takes one uncomfortable incident to make someone think differently about riding SEPTA. So we have to get safer. There's things that we have to do for ourselves to keep that conversation going in a positive direction. And then we have to tell our story. We have to tell it every day. And our riders and the customers that we rely on, whether they're individual riders or businesses that are supported by SEPTA for either transport of their employees or customers, everybody has to speak with one voice that mass transit, no matter how you feel about SEPTA, mass transit is a very, very important function in this region, but it's just as important statewide. So people have to talk to your legislators. We're going to do everything we can to help you make a case so that people don't turn around and say, yeah, but. So we have to fix our stuff, and then everybody speaks as one voice. And I believe in the end, legislators will recognize the value that transit brings, and they'll fund it.
Well, we'll be watching and hoping that happens. But before we let you go, I want to talk more about you. You're a second-generation SEPTA employee who was hired as a SEPTA trolley operator in 1990, and you've literally worked your way up, now becoming the general manager of SEPTA 35 years later. Tell me about your professional journey at SEPTA.
Well, as you mentioned, I am second generation. My father was already a SEPTA employee when I was born. So I tell people that SEPTA has been feeding me since the day I opened my eyes for the first time. And, so he spent, I can distinctly recall as a child listening to stories about SEPTA and stories about the things that he was doing, visiting him on the job from time to time. And when I became able to apply for a job, he sent me to SEPTA, like a good father might say, and say, you got to get a real job. I want you to go to SEPTA. So I went to SEPTA and I became a trolley operator. And I really loved my job. I've loved every job I've held at SEPTA, and I've had quite a few, but I drove the trolleys and the Market Frankfurt line. I've driven buses. And I've been a supervisor for those things. I spent the middle part of my career, about 12 years, in our safety department. And I worked my way up through there till I was the head of that department. And I say that really gave me the background and the knowledge to do the job I'm doing today, because I got exposed to everything. But from there, I ran operations for a little while, became the COO, and And then last June, the board appointed me as the general manager, and I haven't had a minute's sleep since.
Well, what SEPTA buses, trolleys, or trains do you take?
So I will ride primarily. I'm either on the Wilmington Newark line. I board at Marcus Hook, or if I want to be a little more flexible on timing, I will drive up to the stadium complex, park there, and ride the Broad Street line. Those are my two go-to services. But I'm close enough that I've ridden the media train from Media Station. I've ridden the media trolley. I like to jump around a lot, so I think it's the best way for me to see the system in action, is to experience it. To be frustrated when my train's late, to not have a seat because things are crowded, to see something that needs to be cleaned up or something that's broken needs to be fixed. And a lot of the customers have gotten to know me, at least to see me, and they're never shy about telling me what needs attention. And I think that by riding the system, that gives me the best opportunity to see those things.
Looking forward, how is SEPTA preparing for 2026 when we have all these events that will attract a lot of people to our city?
Yeah, so we've had a team working on this for quite some time since we learned really about the FIFA tournament coming to Philly. We've actually created different positions to be our lead people on these types of big events. So putting a service plan together, that's really been underway for a while. First, we had to learn kind of where things were going to be, learning where the FIFA Fan Fest was going to be held, for example, before we could put in some sort of transit plan for that. But we sit on a number of working committees that are hosted either by the city of Philadelphia or by FIFA 26. So we're working on that. We're sprucing up stations. We've got $30 million in infrastructure investments we're making. Most notably, anyone who rides through City Hall Station has seen the transformation going on there. New floors been put down. The walls have been cleaned up and look a lot better. We moved the fare line, so that's all getting redone. And we're doing some work down at the stadium, NRG station down at the stadiums. But we got a lot of infrastructure work we're working on, and then of course staffing. This is going to be an all hands event for us next summer, so we got a lot of staffing we're working on to try to be ready to greet these visitors that are coming.
So what's your vision for SEPTA 10 years from now? And what are you excited about for the system in the coming months and years?
Well, I mean, quite frankly, 10 years from now, I see SEPTA as a completely transformed organization. We're going to try to pull together 3 rail car procurements all at once. We have our streetcar procurement to replace our trolleys is already underway. Our Market Frankfurt car procurement is already underway. And we have just released our request for proposals for the new Silverliners, which will replace the Silverliner 4s that are being inspected. So in 10 years, they should be fully completed or really near the end of completion. So I'm excited that transit riders in the region will have new rail cars to ride on. Our bus fleet is always in a state of renewal, so that will always be getting upgraded. We'll have stations that will be made fully accessible, more stations by then. So there's a lot of work going on to get the fundamentals ready for folks. But behind the scenes, I want to spend a lot more time training folks on being more customer centric. SEPTA sometimes gets a poor reputation for not being as customer friendly as we need to be. My vision is to change all that. I want to make sure that our employees understand that the customer is the most important thing that we do. We have to take care of their safety, but we also have to ensure that our system is reliable for them. So as we move forward over the next decade, we have to change the way we do business internally, be more efficient, be more cognizant of the taxpayer dollars, and making sure that people understand why we make the decisions we make, so that someday down the road, if a future GM is arguing for additional funding, they don't have to explain what I did. That it's all kind of out there for people to understand. And we're going to get better. We're going to be a lot better as the years go on, and hopefully in 10 years, folks this will all be a distant memory, and they'll appreciate that what the kind of system that they have.
Scott, in this vision that you have, do you see a subway line for Roosevelt Boulevard?
Well, listen, I would say that SEPTA is ready, willing, and able to do whatever the region deems is a project worth doing. But a project of that magnitude takes significant capital investment. So the decision first has to be made as a region, is that where we want our capital investment to go? But SEPTA is not opposed to doing whatever the folks that make those decisions put on us. But we want to take care of what we have first. We have an aging fleet. Even the Broad Street fleet will have to be replaced within that decade that we're talking about. So there's a lot to do in-house. But if during that conversation somebody says, "Hey, we want to build a subway on the boulevard, and here's X billions of dollars to do it," then that's what will get done.
I know that SEPTA has a merch store. You guys sell like token cufflinks and blankets and SEPTA branded mugs, and there's like model train cars and ugly sweaters. But I was wondering because I saw this thing online, and I saw that MTA, New York's transit system, they have these pop-up sales where they sell old and retired iconic subway signs and seats even. Could SEPTA do something like that? Like have a big pop-up sale to sell some stuff that we could put on our walls, or like have someone have like a Broad and Gerard sign in their living room or at the bar or something?
So that's not unusual for us to do either. We've sold the signs that you see on the regional rail equipment, the old R2 and R5 signs. So when those naming conventions went away, we sold those signs. They were very popular. People wanted to buy their train. So we have done that on occasion when we're retiring certain signs or infrastructure that's salvageable. But yes, we have actually done that. We haven't done them in pop-ups necessarily. The transit store has kind of taken care of all that. But if you go into the transit store, there are likely still some of those signs left over that somebody could purchase if they wanted.
Awesome. Scott Sauer, the general manager of SEPTA, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me on CityCast Philly today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
That's all for today here on CityCast Philly. If you enjoyed this episode with Scott Sauer, general manager of SEPTA, tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to sign up for our morning newsletter, Hey Philly, to learn more about what else Philly's talking about. And don't forget, you can support the show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Philly neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye.